Hey everyone, welcome back to AI with Pallavi. Ready to learn another AWS service in just 10 minutes? Let's get started. Let's learn Amazon VPC. Amazon VPC is your own private, isolated section of the AWS cloud. Think of it as buying a plot of land. AWS gives you the land, but you decide the layout, where the roads go, which gates are locked, which buildings face the public street, and which ones stay hidden at the back. Under the hood, it's a software defined network. You control the IP address range, the subnets, the routing table, the internet access, and the traffic rules. Nothing gets in or out unless you explicitly allow it. No other AWS customer can see inside your VPC as well, even if they are running workloads in the same physical data center. Now, this is one of the most critical service which you will learn in this series and super important as well. It has multiple components, but let's quickly understand what are the different components provided by Amazon VPC. Now, whenever you create a VPC, the most important question you should ask is, what are those resources mean to you? Do you want those resources to access the resources on the internet? And also, do you want these resources like EC2 instance and any other details which you are creating, do you want them to be accessible from internet as well, right? So you can accordingly choose whether you want to create public subnet or a private subnet. If you're choosing public subnet, then it has a route to the internet gateway. Private subnet does not have any direct route to the internet. And you can have load balancers, NAT gateways within public subnet, and within private subnets you can have like RDS, Elastic Cache, SageMaker endpoints, Bedrock VPC endpoints, and others. So these are the type of resources which can reside there. Then the route table rule is different. Anything can point to internet gateway, while for private subnet, outbound traffic always point to NAT gateway. Now, if you need public access, you will have to create a NAT gateway in that case. Now, if you want to have databases, right, you should not put that in public subnet because you definitely don't want your data to be accessible from the outside world. So, golden rule, if it talks to the users, public subnet. If it processes data or runs any inferences in case of AI workloads, then private subnets. Let's look at 3 real world use cases. So prod versus dev environment separation. That is one of the major use case, how you can isolate your environment. So let's say you are running a fintech or healthcare app, you cannot afford a misconfigured dev environment touching production data. So you create separate VPCs for prod, staging, and dev, each with its own IP range and security parameter. Now, then you can have private networking for AI inference workloads. For example, if you're running a Bedrock or SageMaker inference endpoint and you don't want that traffic touching the public internet, so you deploy the endpoint into private subnet inside your VPC and use VPC endpoints to reach Bedrock privately. The model invocation also never leaves the AWS network. Third, hybrid connectivity for on-prem integration. Your company has on-premise systems, a legacy data warehouse, or a private Active Directory that your AWS workloads have to reach, right? So in this case, you set up a VPC with the private subnet, attach a VPN gateway or direct connect, and now your EC2 instance can talk to on-prem resources as well. So these are the 3 use cases where you can design your VPCs, and VPC already have these features which can be readily used. Now let's look at the AWS VPC console. There are multiple features which you can use from here. So you will see that there is a VPC dashboard. There are multiple resources in within the VPC dashboard, and you'll also see some default VPC already present. So you can stop using that for anything real. So it's fine for quick experiments, testing, but anything if you are creating for production, just ensure that you create a new VPC in that case. So let's go ahead and start creating a VPC, and we'll see what all features it provide. Now there are 2 things. You can create VPC using VPC only settings, where you have to just give the VPC name, you have to choose each and everything on your own, or you can choose VPC and more. So this is the place where most people actually miss this feature. So VPC and more actually generate the full network topology for you: subnets, route tables, internet gateway, everything which works. So you're not logged into the defaults, but it gives you a very solid starting point. So once you select this, you can see it will show you what all details it has been creating by default. Now you can create the name, you can choose the IPv4 CIDR block. For example, this is what is there as a starting point that gives you 65,536 IPs to work with, right? So pick something that won't clash with your on-prem ranges. If you plan to do VPN or direct connect later, this is the mistake people make. So they pick 10.0.0.0/16 and then realize their corporate network is also on 10.0.0.0/16. So you have to plan this upfront, right? So ensure that you choose the right CIDR block. Then you can choose a number of AZs. So availability zones, super important. Choose at least 2 availability zones and create both public and private subnets in each. Public subnets get the internet gateway route, private subnets don't. Your load balancers and NAT gateways sit in public subnets. Your application servers, databases, and AI endpoints sit in the private subnet. So that separation is actually non-negotiable. Now you can change the numbers. Let's say if you just want all the private subnet, you can change the numbers like this. And then if you want private subnet as well as public subnet, like all public, you can choose this. Then you can choose the numbers as well. Now you will see as we are changing, you will see the routes are changing as well. USEast 1, this. If I increase the availability zone numbers, I will have more. Right, automatically it will identify if there are more AZs, then we need to create more subnets. If you don't choose this option, right, VPC and more, then you will have to do everything manually. So that's how the things changes. Now, if you want to enable a NAT gateway in at least one AZ, this actually lets you lets your private subnet resources reach the internet for things like pulling updates, calling external APIs without being reachable from the internet, right? So this is just to actually connect to internet, not making this accessible from the internet. So there are different options which is being provided now, like regional, zonal. So if you see for regional, there is a separate route table which points to the network connections like IGW and NAT in this case. Then you can also choose zonal. In this case, this is a zonal endpoint which is created. So that's how the gateway changes. This is optional, but definitely it would be very useful if you create. Then you also have different options in one AZ, one per AZ. So depending upon that, it can create. There are VPC endpoints as well, which you can create. For example, for S3 specifically, if you want to enable S3 gateway, it can be done. So you can see this is a VPC endpoint for S3. This actually helps you to connect to specific services via specific network connection. So that's how it is. And this is how you can add more tag. So once all of this is done, you can create your VPC and modify the changes. So you can see it is doing a lot of different options here. Let me also show you another feature which is very common, that is VPC pairing. Let's say you have two different VPCs in two different accounts. Two accounts for a single organization as well. So in this case, what you can do is you can peer those VPCs. So traffic from one VPC can land up to other VPC as well. What you have to do, just go to VPC pairing connections and you can choose a VPC IDs, another VPC as well, VPC which is present in your account, VPC in another account, or in your account itself, in another region or the same region, and accordingly it can start the peering. So that's how you can connect to VPCs as well within different regions, different accounts. So this is a very common feature. Then there is DHCP option set. This is also super important. So this is what configuration your VPC resources will use. If you see the default option set, which is Amazon DHCP option set, in this case, the EC2 instances or any resources within your VPC use these configuration, right? The DNS servers, DHCP option set, DHCP servers. So all this is being used. Now, if you use a custom DHCP option set, this is very important. Let's say if you have a corporate data center or on-prem connectivity, right? And you want to use the DNS servers from there because you don't have the DNS entries by default in your DHCP option set, which is provided by Amazon. If you want to use that, then in this case, you can create a custom DHCP option set and you can map all these entries directly to your corporate data center. So that's how it can work. Now, once your VPC is created, you will see all the resources there. So it takes some time to create all these resources, but let's look at one of the VPC which we already have. So once this is created, you can see there are multiple options present here. You can see the CIDRs, the flow logs, the integrations, if any, like if you want to enable internet monitor, you can do that as well. So there are multiple options provided in this case, right? The resource map. What are the VPCs, the subnets, how they are routed, the route tables associated with that. If you want to see any of those resources, you can open that resource as well. Right, so there are subnets, route tables, internet gateways, and then egress only internet gateways, different functionalities only if you need it. Then we also saw DHCP option set. You also have elastic IPs option if you want to have specific IPs for your VPCs, NAT gateways, pairing connections. So these are the major things which you should know about within a VPC. Now, there are some important things which you should remember when you're starting to use VPC within your production. So you have to plan your CIDR ranges before you build anything. Once a VPC is created, you can't change the primary CIDR. It's very important. You can definitely add secondary CIDRs, but ensure that you have enough IPs to work on it. Now, NAT gateways are one of the most overlooked cost items on AWS. So they charge per hour and per GB of data processed. If your private subnet workloads are doing heavy data transfer, check your NAT gateway cost. Enable VPC Flow Logs from day one. They capture all data, like IP traffic metadata going in and out of your network interfaces. They don't capture payload content, just the metadata. So you are safe in that case. And this will also help you to debug a connectivity issue or respond to a security incident, and you actually have the data. So if you're still using the default VPC for anything in your production, drop the confession in the comments. No judgment. We have all been there. Next in the series, we'll cover different networking services and go ahead and start using VPC. And just like that, you have learned another AWS service in 10 minutes. Hit that subscribe button if you like this video and comment if you have any questions related to this service or if there is any service you want me to focus next. Happy learning!